Welcome to Golden Black Live, our Friday, November 10th edition. Very special guest here with Coach Cuonzo Martin, Purdue legend in his own right, and we'll have a great chance to talk to him for two segments, which will be great, great stuff, I think, for this show. I want to thank Triple X on the Hill, but on the level of Purdue tradition since 1929. I could see a Cuonzo Martin burger there before long. You never know. He's done a lot of things in his life, but maybe that's one thing he'll get to. I don't know. State Farm agent Trent Johnson at trentismyagent.com. We appreciate the support of these two as well. All right, Cuonzo, you know, it's offline. We were working on a story on your son, and just you've talked openly about, and your message really is, and we're going to get into all that too. Joy, redemption, work hard, all these things, faith, love. That seems to me to be a lot about what Cuonzo Martin is. But I thought you expressed very, just the father, and of course your lovely wife Roberta as well, how proud you are of Chase. But talk about that, the fact that you got a guy wearing jersey number 22 and playing basketball, but also a near 4.0 student in mechanical engineering. That's an unbelievable accomplishment already.
Well, it's a true joy to be his father and just to watch him grow from a young man into a man, to watch him on and off the court, the tremendous work he's done in the classroom, being a mechanical engineer, but also trying to be the best version of a basketball player he can become. Again, when he was born, November 23rd, I got my dates, he's getting so, I think it's 2000. It'd be 23, yeah. 2021, yeah. I think. It was... that was it, man, because God blessed me with a beautiful son, my second son. So man, I'm forever grateful and overjoyed to have him as my son. And what he does on the basketball court is great, man. I'm just happy to be in his presence, to watch him grow, man. And it feels so good. I mean, that's it, man. I mean, whatever he does, I mean, he scores 0 points, 20 points, whatever. It's just a joy for me to see him.
Yeah, and he plays the game with joy. And even at the tail end of Monday night's game, those guys get in, they play hard, they mean business. They tried to get to 100 points, didn't quite get there, but they're all capable in their own right. Obviously, we do working on a story on the legacies too with Carson Barrett and Brian Waddell. It's an interesting fraternity between the three of them and what they all mean to Purdue basketball. All right, you've been a big part of Purdue basketball, is the history of that, and then your opportunity to be back here. You were involved very. You presented it and was the voice to probably one of the more viral videos that's gone on about redemption in Purdue basketball this year. And your great voice, it's like the voice of God, Cuonzo, that comes out there. But talk about that, that rekindling of that relationship that's never gone far away. But you've been at other stops, but with Purdue basketball, and how that has made you feel here in the last year.
Man, it was great to be a part of that video. Man, I was just.
You got the James Earl Jones going, man. You are good. You are really, really good. Go ahead.
It was great, man. Because for me, again, I don't take for granted the fact that Matt and I were teammates. Coach Payne and I were teammates. Brandon is like a brother to me. Elliot Bloom, Paul Luskin. Now, people don't realize Paul Luskin. I grew up in the same area, so. You talk Paul, and to get back to Paul, us now, we rode a plane together for the first time back in 1989. So again, there's relationships on that staff, but I don't take for granted the fact that Coach Payne allowed me to be a part of that team in the video, because they didn't have to do that. I mean, so I appreciate that. I don't take it for granted at all. And then when I saw it, I was like, wow, it's cool. Pretty good, just the energy behind it, man, and just life stuff, man. And I'm so happy for their team, because they got all the parts to be successful. Wonderful, man, great coaching staff. And really for them, one game at a time. And I think our fans really need to embrace and enjoy this team, enjoy every game. Don't get so consumed with just like we're supposed to win the Big Ten Conference. I mean, nothing is guaranteed. We have to work to win the Big Ten Conference, and we have to work to win the championships. And then, you hear rumblings about well, we passed Big Ten championship. We need Final Four. So, are you kidding me? We could never get older, tired of winning Big Ten championships.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine that level of jewelry on your fingers, all those diamonds? Are you tired of winning Big Ten championships? Ask the other 16 to 17 teams in the Big Ten how they feel about it. I mean, that never gets old. You don't take that for granted. So that means every time there's a game, and I think Purdue fans have been phenomenal, whether it's snow on the ground, cold weather, they attend those games, and that gives us a major advantage every night. So do not take that for granted.
Yeah, and you have 2 of those rings as a player, and of course, your brothers Brandon Brantley and Justin Jennings on down the line got the 3rd the next year with Purdue's three-peat in the '90s. You look at you spoke at the Crew Life event, and I think Rafael Davis is. Your impact on him, I just sense, just the way, and you both gave very eloquent speeches that night or discussions. But talk about a guy like Ray Davis, and I know you didn't. Well, you may have tried to recruit Ray Davis back in the day. I don't know, but what a guy. He's gone on and doing things with his life that are sure he's doing basketball and he's doing TV and he's very good. But he's also doing a heck of a lot more that really matters more in a lot of ways with what he's doing with kids. But talk about you don't look at your with the way that you have mentored these people, but you've mentored them maybe from afar. They look up to people like you and what you mean. But we'll talk about Ray Davis and what he's done. Ray
Davis obviously come from great parenting. That's first and foremost.
Yeah.
Of course, I knew him when I was there. I think maybe a year or 2 when I left, but he was a phenom. He was scoring like 60 points in junior high school. So I saw all that because, again, I had great relationships with Rosie Barnes and Eugene Park and Fort Wayne area. I was always in that area. So you knew he was a young phenom. And I think for him, man, with Crew Life, and I think all of our Purdue fans, even all the fans in the Big Ten need to get on board with something like this, because what happens when you're taking time out of your schedule, of course, he has his life on the Big Ten Network. He has his own family. He has Crew Life. So that's a lot of time when you spread yourself thin. So you need everybody on board in order for you to be successful. And he's maximizing his time to make sure the youth in the Fort Wayne and surrounding communities get what they need to be successful in sports as well as in life. But he's also extending it to their families. That takes a toll on you. So you need financial support. You need everybody on board to make it go. And I thought the event he had at the football stadium was phenomenal because, and you also have to give Coach Paint and the athletic department credit for allowing him to use their facilities to do that. That's really unheard of. And I think that's what makes Purdue Purdue. It's one of those unique places where family means something. I think with Coach Paint at the helm of this program, you'll see a lot of former players come around and do a lot of things because Coach Payne is willing and he understands what life means outside of basketball.
Yeah, and it shows in a big way from that. Okay, you have entered this wonderful world of sports media, and I think it's not just sports. Certainly, you're have the opportunity to be able to talk to folks in the way that you do, and tell us a little bit about your podcast, but also how that's come about and why that really is important to you to get a message not only of redemption, but also talking about life with folks. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the podcast, It All Counts.
It All Counts. I love that name. Yeah.
And really, it's just when Roberta and I, we were thinking of names. We were just going around different names, and it was like 40 different things we were just coming up with. And then I started saying, what do I say a lot? Because as you notice, sometimes I'll say things over and over. And I think in coaching, you have to repeat certain things. And I always say it all counts. Like I always say to our players on the court as well as in life, it all counts. And some of those valleys, we love the peaks. We love that. But those valleys, that's where I learned my best lessons, in those valleys, because what happens, it takes time. You have to sit down and you have to reflect on life. And where do you go from here? And I love the valleys. Now, though they are painful, I love them. But once you learn from them, you can get back up to the mountaintop. So for me, It All Counts podcast, if I'm not coaching, then how can I impact the world? And then where it starts for me is the homeless, the hopeless, and the helpless. That's where it starts for me. Then I go back to just my story. My mom had her first child at 16, 18, and 20, and then like 24, 25, and just trying to find her way. Her mom passed away when she was probably 19 or 20. So then I go back to a young mom with young kids and trying to help them in life who really just trying to find her way. So with the podcast, that's what it's all about for me. How do I reach people that need help, that needs a voice, it's almost as if and I don't know how this happened, but we looked at our numbers. I had great numbers in Africa, so many countries in Africa. I don't know how it happened.
Yeah.
But what I mean by that, what I try to do is, this is what I want from the podcast. So if somebody's in Africa, or somebody's in Utah, somebody's in Detroit, I want this to, it's just a pat on the back. You're all right. Yeah. You're okay. I went through that. Here's somebody else that went through. So I have Darius Miles. Obviously, Matt Painter did a phenomenal job on the podcast. Cuonzo Ellis. I have a mental health coach, teacher, psychologist on this here in about the next 30 minutes because this is Men's Health Awareness Month in the month of November. So I'll have somebody else on next week about that. But just really want to reach people and help them understand we all go through something. And I've always been a transparent type of guy. I don't have nothing to hide. I mean, people have seen my flaws and all my issues in my growing up in East St. Louis. So, and I've never really been embarrassed about a lot of things, man, because it's life and God blessed me with certain gifts. So with those gifts, I got to be able to take these burdens as well and put them together and deal with them because, again, he's going to give it to you all and you got to be able to embrace it.
You know, you look at 2023 versus 1990, there are still some of the same problems that folks that grow up in places that, like you grew up in East St. Louis. And I forgot that Cuonzo Ellis is an East St. Louis brother, right? And from that standpoint too. But what that took for you and your path wasn't a simple one to Purdue, because I know Illinois was on probation, there's all, as the story goes, and yet and you were dealing with knee injury issues, but also economic issues, just being able to come to West Lafayette and be able to do that. Talk about what that taught you, but also what you're telling folks now that deal with that same situation.
Well, the biggest thing, even when I talk to youth, parents, single parent fathers, if you want to succeed, it has to live inside. It has to burn inside of you. It really has to burn inside you. You have to be willing to dig deep. Is it uncomfortable? Yes. Is there fear involved? Yes. Will you possibly fail? Yes. But you got to be able to dig deep. So for me, watching my mom work as a maid at Mayfair Hotel, downtown St. Louis, and then at nights, she worked at what they call a celebrity room, kind of like a sports bar type of setting. Mm-hmm. And just to see that when you're younger, you don't know, because in East St. Louis, in the project house we grew up in, pretty much everybody lived there, but you didn't know. Now, we weren't poor, because I've been around the world, so I know what poor is. We come from humble beginnings.
Right.
So, and I've seen my mom, and she always had a smile on her face, but as you get older, you knew she struggled just to make ends meet. And then I got to a point, maybe high school, just I got to find a way to make it work for my mom. Now, when I was coming out of high school, it wasn't all the talks about I got to be an NBA player. That wasn't even a talk. It was just, I got to find a way to make it work for my mom. That could have been a police officer, a fireman, who knew? I didn't really have a clue what that looked like, but I had to make it work. So I had to raise my level of expectations and increase my courage to get uncomfortable in life. And that's not an easy thing to do, because I had to get out of my comfort zone. Like, for example, when I had to go to prep school, I took a Greyhound bus from St. Louis, Missouri to New Hampshire, New Hampshire. You're talking about an 18 kid from St. Louis to New Hampshire by myself. And it's like, wow.
Whole nother world.
It really was. And New Hampshire was a great experience for me. It's totally different from East St. Louis. East St. Louis, 100% Black, and New Hampshire, outside of the athletes, there weren't a lot of Blacks around. But again, my mom, they were people to me. My mom just sit there and raise, okay, this person, that person. Yeah. And they were people. And it was a great experience for me. And they opened their arms to me and made it phenomenal for me. And then my transition back to Purdue, it helped me. And that was a tough road when I got to West Lafayette, Indiana, because again, coming from East St. Louis, I was used to one style of play. Then it was a totally different style of play at Purdue. So I had to make that adjustment. And that was very uncomfortable, man, just sitting there watching, not playing a lot. But I also knew I had to grow. And one of the guys that really helped me in that, along with teammates, but Glenn Robinson, because again, that year he had to sit out as a Prop 48 kid. And he would always keep me encouraged because they just stay confident, keep working the game. But again, back then, those talks weren't about transferring because you weren't playing. So that was never the case. And I couldn't call home to anybody and say, well, I'm transferring because coach not playing. It's like, man, if you don't get out of my face with that, we care less about that. Because again, if I'm calling home to somebody about me not playing, then all they would simply say was, then that means the person in front of you is better. It had nothing to do with coach. It had everything to do with you. And I think that's what happens with a lot of young men and women today. There's comfort at home to say, yeah, coach is mistreating you or you should be playing more, as opposed to, now coach got it. Because all my mom cared about was me working to get a degree and her son being successful in life. If it's ball, okay, that's fine. But she want to make sure her son's successful in life.
Yeah. All right. We're going to one more question and we'll take a break. But talk about that first experience meeting Gene Keady, and I don't know whether it was at that time, whether it was Frank or Bruce or who was there to recruit you the first time, but your first impression of Purdue and in the recruiting process.
Well, it was Coach Weber, because again, I'm quite sure Purdue thought the same thing. Well, he's going to Illinois. That's probably what he's doing. But what happened was Coach Weber was recruiting my teammate, Chris McKinney, who's a talented 6'3", 6'4" guard, a really tough kid. So they were recruiting him. Quite sure they saw me, but they probably felt like he's going to Illinois, so we're not going to bother with that. But then when the situation took place with Illinois, now I'll give Purdue credit. They stayed consistent, and maybe they knew something from an NCAA standpoint was about to happen, because then Bruce Weber and Frank both were recruiting me.
Yeah.
So they probably knew something was about to go down. So they stayed consistent along with UConn. And then it just really came down to Purdue and UConn. And what happened was, my mom, she said, you might have heard me say this before, but the night before I was about to make a decision, she just said, Coach Keady seems like a good man. Because again, you really don't know anybody. You don't know. And then I made the decision. It came out Purdue and Connecticut, and I chose Purdue, and it was a great decision for me.
Yeah, you and Gene Keady are cut out of the same cloth, not all the way, but there are some real traits that match, that made you guys a good match, I think, just in terms of work ethic, etc. All right, we're going to take a short break and be back for segment. Cuonzo's been gracious enough to join us for 2 segments today, and it's a privilege for us to have him. So we'll take a short break, be back in 2 minutes on Gold and Black Live.